Hello and welcome to another episode of Chats with Chip. I'm your host, Chip Griffin, and I am delighted to have with me a regular guest on some of my shows, a good friend, a really smart guy, and I think we're going to have a great conversation. Bill Beutler of Beutler Ink. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a moment. I'm glad you think of me as a regular. Um, but
I do
a
because
couple
I've had you
years.
on at least twice on different shows, so it's always great to have you, and you do have a lot of insight. And today we'll be talking about Wikipedia, which is for those of us who are seasoned, shall we say, in the business, have seen it evolve a bit over the years, but it remains a mainstay. But I think a lot of people, with all the developments that are taking place out there with AI and the birth of different kinds of sites and all that kind of stuff, how relevant is it? Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? How should they be thinking about it? So we'll get into that in a minute. But before we start talking about Wikipedia, why don't you just share a little bit about yourself first?
Sure thing. So as you said, the have my own agency. It's called Beutler Ink. We're a strategic creative firm where Wikipedia is our primary service, although not our only. We also do content development and social media, and we have a really strong emphasis on visual design. We've been in business for about 13 years at this point, and we have a team of about 2 dozen spread across the contiguous 48. We've never had an office in all the years we've been in business. The first person I wanted to work with was in a different state, and then we just kept hiring people where they were and never bothered to have an office. And we've going strong, and it's been a blast.
Well, it's great that you talked about how you go beyond Wikipedia because obviously that's how you and I first met many years ago,
Mhm.
and I always think of you as my go-to Wikipedia expert whenever anybody asks. But you guys also do put out a tremendous amount of stuff that particularly the visual stuff that you guys put out. I really enjoy, and think you guys do a bang up job of being able to. I hate calling them infographics because infographics is just
Right.
it's one of those terms that I think has been totally distorted over the years, and I see these infographics that are really like 10-page reports that have just been converted into a giant long image, and so you guys do a much better job, I think, of turning them into what they could have or should have been. And so I would encourage folks to check out the work that you guys are doing in that area as well, because it really is something that even if they don't work with you, they can learn a lot from, as far as how to do it the right way.
Absolutely. And our blog on our website at butlerink.com, there are plenty of posts about data visualization, different approaches. At one point in time, we did think of the creative side of the business as being an infographic shop. And this was roughly 2013, 2014, back when that was the infographics were all the rage and they kind of got overdone. I actually met the great data visualization um, speaker, Edward Tufte. I asked him what agencies should know about infographics. And his answer was stop. Like he just was over it. And this is the guy who is the go-to on data biz. And I'm sorry, my cat has just knocked over a table. I thought, I thought that, I thought that everything would be chill, but these cats are not. So,
Well, it's what makes
okay.
these, live to tape shows interesting because you never know what pets or children. My regular podcast I do with Ginny Dietrich, her daughter makes an appearance quite frequently in the background
Good.
on those. So it adds to the reality that this is, and so I appreciate that. Um,
For
you know,
sure.
I- so let's weave into Wikipedia a little bit here though, because Wikipedia is one of those things. I think a lot of people aren't quite sure what to make of it, and so
Yeah.
some people think of Wikipedia as this place where their organization, their business gets trashed, right? Um, you know,
Sure.
it-
Envy.
and particularly I've done a lot of work in crisis comms over the years, and needless to say, any business that's involved in a crisis is probably going to have stuff on Wikipedia that they don't enjoy seeing. It may be factual, right? Because that is the goal of Wikipedia, but they still don't
Right.
like it, and they maybe think it doesn't have appropriate context or something like that. And so, so you've got that camp that just, sees it as a fear. You've got another camp that sees it as an opportunity. Hey, we want to promote our business. We want to make sure we've got a good, robust Wikipedia listing so it can, if someone's Googling for us, they can find all this good information and it's from a credible third party
Yeah.
source. So therefore,
Mhm.
it must be good. And so, those are sort of the two extremes, if you will. And in both, there's opportunity, but in both, there's also some risk.
I mean, it really does run the gamut, just as you say. We will speak to, I would say, the broad majority of the prospective clients that we talk to and clients we work with. There is already an article, and it just has been kind of neglected. It's not usually overly negative, although you better believe we talk to people who have been the focus of a campaign to make the page worse. Um, and we also work with a lot of companies who would like to have an article, but do not have one yet. And that can be a whole challenge of its own because there are far more companies and individuals and organizations who would like to have a page than actually qualify for one. So we really see people with all kinds of different challenges relating to Wikipedia, but it all comes down to the same core value proposition slash risk situation that here we are, what, more than 20 years following the establishment of Wikipedia, and more than 15 years that it's been, really globally famous, that had, to this day, people run a search on something, they want to learn information, and Wikipedia is very often one of the first things that comes up. Even if another website does come up ahead of Wikipedia, on the rare occasions where that happens, well, people know what Wikipedia is. They know that it has this authoritative voice. These days, they know that actually Wikipedia is pretty good. The citations have been built out over time. Again, Wikipedia was founded in 2001. So here we are. What is it? It's now 2023. So it's about 22 years old at this point. It's really quite a mature product, if you can speak of it in those terms. As an encyclopedia, it's really well developed. It's a place to be seen. And well, if you're not there, you want to be. And if what people read there is wrong, there's definitely the perception that it matters. And this really, really often is the case where we'll speak to somebody from the communications department at a company where they're hearing from their CEO that they happen to read the page, or maybe their nephew, pulled them aside at Thanksgiving and said, "Have you seen what what Wikipedia says about the company?" And that'll start this conversation where they're looking for somebody to help. And I'm grateful when they find us. We love doing this kind of work. Um, One of the other challenges about Wikipedia, even here, 20 years into its existence and long after it's reached, uh, ubiquity, there's still really a very small number of consultants or agencies who do this work well, who do this work in a way that will keep themselves and keep clients out of trouble. I think because Wikipedia, the volunteer editor based at Wikipedia, they don't think of themselves as providing a marketing service. And so they really, do not roll out the red carpet for PR and marketing people.
I think in
Yeah,
some cases exactly the opposite. They view
absolutely.
professional communicators as the enemy almost.
Yes.
And so I think that can be a challenge. I like the fact that you mentioned the maturity of Wikipedia, because I think that's certainly
Yeah.
true as far as the volume, the comprehensiveness of the information itself. The area where I think it's a little bit less mature, at least in technological
Mhm.
terms, is its user friendliness for those who are interested in
Yeah.
editing it, and it remains, perhaps intentionally so, a place where you kind of
Right.
have to really know the system in order to even mechanically go about the edits. It is, if you go to the edit page on a normal page in Wikipedia, I think the average person would look at that and just be absolutely befuddled by it. The list of revisions and the way it does it, and previous and next, and
Right.
you sit there and you're like, what the heck does any of this even mean? And so I think that that does, for agencies who are trying to help clients, I think that is an obstacle as well, because they
Mhm.
don't, you can't even, for many of them, get past the technological hurdle of how to do it before you can start stepping into the weeds and making trouble by doing something you shouldn't.
This is really true. Actually, this is believe it or not, we actually developed software that we use and that we also offer to agencies and to clients to 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 take those confusing lists of edits and turn them into something that is a little more usable. So the software is called WikiWatch. You can learn more about it at wikiwatch.net. It's available by subscription. Because truly, Wikipedia is designed for the insiders who have taken the time to learn what it is. And if you are a professional communicator who has other things that you're doing, it can just take too long to learn how it all works. So obviously hiring an agency like myself or one of the few others out there who are similarly, qualified and uh, again, ethical in their approach, just because it's so common for scams. We have talked to people a lot who have tried to hire a consultant off of Fiverr or someone who's cold pitched them, and they've lost thousands of dollars trying to get something that they can't get. Anyway, if you do want to kind of develop some knowledge yourself, WikiWatch is a great way to start. I will give Wikipedia credit for having done a lot of work over the years to try to make editing easier. But as you say, it doesn't make it actually easy.
Right, and honestly, I'm not sure that the site really has an incentive to make it too easy because then there's a lot more policing that has
Right.
to be done, right? So there is a certain advantage to having a barrier to entry on the editing, so that those core editors who are involved in trying to help don't have as much to review. And I think to me that's another key point here. Part of the thing that I hear from agencies is the experience can be very different from one client's page to another, because it really depends on which editors have taken an interest in that particular entry and what their own outlook is, right? Because there are certain, general standards within Wikipedia, but a lot of it comes down to personal interpretation of the editors who are actually participating in that particular page.
This is a really excellent point. So Wikipedia has a complex set of policies and guidelines, a whole manual of style for how things should be written, what kinds of sources you should use, how you should write from them, etc. And learning them is very important. But just as you say, ultimately there is no real editorial structure. There's no editor in chief. There are no managing editors, and it doesn't work like that. It's purely a volunteer community. And so there is a bit of the luck of the draw with the editor who, if you are, if you are a PR professional and you want to interact on the page of a client, you may have well have heard it's best not to go in and make direct edits. Very strongly discouraged. However, you are welcome to come to the discussion page for that topic and, raise an issue, even present an argument, present a new draft. And so the idea is that volunteers should help. Well, how helpful will they be? It certainly helps a lot if you can speak their language, cite the right policies and guidelines, and and come with the right answer the first time. This is the sort of thing that an agency such as mine can take the guesswork out of. But even so, yeah, even for us, we still talk to editors we've never met before, just because myself and my strategy team have a lot of experience, helping clients solve problems on Wikipedia. There are a lot of Wikipedia editors we know very well and have a good working relationship with. And yet there are also folks that have never heard of us before. And so we can have to, uh, demonstrate good faith every time. Um, and some editors are more skeptical of PR than others.
That's a very polite way of putting it, Bill.
Well, I have to do business there. I'm very pro Wikipedia, and I think it's one reason why we are successful. Like, I
Well,
think that
look, I mean,
Wikipedia is
it
a
is a
great thing.
tremendously valuable resource. I
Absolutely.
consult Wikipedia on a regular basis when I'm looking for information on
Yeah,
things, as I'm sure most of our listeners here today do as well.
definitely.
And so, it is filling a useful place, in the market. At the same time, it is incredibly frustrating at times when you read things in there, and either, whether it's a
Mhm.
client or not, sometimes you'll read things and be like, they really shouldn't say that way, or because we also have to remember that all editors are people, right? And so, you know,
Mhm.
yes, you stick to the facts, but at some point, someone has to be the arbiter of which facts to include, right? Because particularly
Yes.
on major companies, major topics, you can't include everything in them. And so ultimately, part of an editor's role is decide what's in and what's out. And that
Yep.
does inevitably reflect the biases of the particular editor one way or the other. Just, I've always argued this with the media, right? It's silly for
Mhm.
the news media to pretend that they're impartial. They are not. We all come to the
Right.
table with biases, whether conscious or not, and they will show through if we look closely enough at anyone's writing. So you have to be reasonable in your expectations, I think, of the editors and what you can actually achieve from that perspective.
Yes. And remember that these editors, they really all are volunteers. And if you pose a request and somebody comes and it answers you, they're taking time out of another project of theirs to help you out. And so I'll tell you, we oftentimes will see consultants who try on their own, and they do a good job getting started. They create a user account and have they choose the right name. They choose a usable name. They provide the proper disclosures of who their client is, and then they go to post a request on the top page, and it's 2,000 words long, and they're asking for every single change in that first edit. Volunteer editors are just going to ignore that probably for the most part. You'll be lucky if somebody says, "Whoa, can you break this up into something usable?" They I find it's very common where a company who has tried before comes to us. This also happens with creating a new article. They may have written their own draft, found the articles for creation process, which is how you're supposed to submit an article if you have a financial connection to the topic. And then they wait 3 months time and they just get back a reply from the editor that's like, no. And they don't provide any useful information. Um, that's frustrating. It would be great if Wikipedia editors provided more guidance on how to do it right the next time. But they're not going to do your work for you. There's there's a huge a lot of concern about that. But heck, you're paid. We're not. We're not going to do your work for you.
Right. And in my experience, targeted edits are much more effective than wholesale rewrites, right? I mean, most of the time, at least from what I've seen, wholesale rewrites are not readily accepted. Whereas if you focus in on particular, points that need to
Mhm.
be added or context provided to or something like that, and you can make a strong case, you're much more likely to do that. And then you can build momentum, right? So if you focus on the things that are the easiest to get changed or updated or fixed, focus on those, then you build momentum with the editors that you're being there as an
Yeah.
honest broker. And so therefore much more likely to evolve in the direction that you're looking as opposed to a total rewrite. Throw out all this garbage that you've worked on previously. It's no good.
Um, I love this. We're talking strategy. I have a slightly different view. I think that you are right a lot of the time, but it also depends. I'll give you an example of where sometimes we'll get like the executive, the biography where they have like taken a pen and they have marked up all the changes they want to make. And they have so many different things they want to do. If they have like 20, 25 little changes, at that point, actually, it might be better to just present a clean, fresh version of a section. That way we can address like the 5 different points in that update, that proposed update rather than asking for 5 different things. But it can take a while. Like we certainly do completely rewrite articles. I should say the volunteers approve rewrites, but it can take a while. We oftentimes will say that a project, a substantial project should be probably about a 6 month starting. We'll start there and see. Maybe we finish early, but maybe we take a little bit longer. And there are some where we've worked with, like Fortune 500 companies with very long entries, and it can take up to a year to do a complete overhaul as we work through section by section.
Yeah. I think the other thing that agencies need to think about here is, particularly PR agencies, how can they be helpful to the editing process beyond the direct edits, right? Because one of Wikipedia's standards is to cite, third party sources as opposed to, so if the company
Mhm.
posts something on their website, no matter how true it may be, Wikipedia frowns upon that typically as a source and would prefer to see it in print somewhere, or in digital print as it is today. And so,
Right.
agencies who are thinking about this can work to try to get, reporters to write about the things that they would like to see covered in Wikipedia, but maybe there's not an existing story that they can point back to. And I've seen this even with individuals with things that are in their biography, right? That because Wikipedia, if you share a link to their official bio from the company, a lot of Wikipedia editors will say, "Nah, not good enough." But if you get a reporter to write a profile piece that mentions it, well, now you've got it in a place, even though effectively it's coming from the same place, right? Because we all know most reporters don't verify, that the
Right.
CEO went to, Cornell or whatever. I mean, the CEO told, just like they told the writer who did their
Right.
bio, they went to Cornell, but all of a sudden it's more impactful because it was in a, we can debate the logic of that some other day, but it's the reality. And so if you think about that as an agency and how you can leverage some of your tools outside of Wikipedia to influence what's in Wikipedia, that can also be valuable.
Yes, the ontology of Wikipedia and how it knows what is true, or that something is true. You pull back that, and there's like creepy crawlers underneath there. Um, but you are really onto something with when you say profiles, because Wikipedia is very careful about which kinds of sources it wants to use, even from a reputable publication. You could have let's say like the Hollywood Reporter is a reputable publication covering the entertainment industry. If there is an article about your client and it is a fully editorial product of the writer and of the editors, where it's prose and quotes are interpolated throughout, that kind of a properly written profile can be quite useful.
Yep.
Now it's also very common for a major publication like that to also simply write it as a Q&A. Now, here's the thing. Wikipedia will not accept Q&As, even if it comes from a major publication, because the thinking is that it's almost the same thing as in terms of the information integrity, it's the same thing as a press release. It's just coming right out of the mouth of the executive, and it has not been filtered through fact checking or the editorial process. And as you say, you and I know that fact checking is not what it used to be, and it may not be any more accurate than just a Q&A. However, Wikipedia is trying to plant a flag and say, we want there to be some evidence that the publication has considered it and, put their own judgment behind it, or, the publication claims it's true, not just the interviewee. And so, like for a lot of clients of PR, professionals and publicists, having a Q&A could be a great hit. It could be great sometimes just to be mentioned in a column on the subject of your expertise. However, that is not really useful for Wikipedia's purpose. Wikipedia wants to see that article say something about your career. If you're just quoted about something that you are an expert on, like maybe that could be something that could be added to that other article about that subject, but it doesn't provide you with anything to add to Wikipedia about it. So
Right.
the work of PR and Wikipedia, they really are intertwined in some interesting ways. But it is a challenge too.
Yeah. I think part of it is, agencies need to help educate their clients on, what are the important changes that you would like to see to your Wikipedia article versus the ones where it's kind of annoying, but it doesn't really have a difference. Because I've talked to a lot of people who, are concerned about something in a Wikipedia article, but it's more for vanity or just because they don't like a certain way something's described. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really impact reputation. It doesn't impact, the reader's behavior or something like that. And so I think you also need to be careful that you don't let some of those little things get too deep under your skin, and you focus on those meaty things that really go to facts, that really go to the heart of the article, because those are the areas where it's worth fighting the fight over, not the little things that are just like, "Ugh, God, I wish it didn't say it that way."
Yeah, you have to learn to kind of know where to pick your battles and what to let go. We find that on Wikipedia, it's really rather easy to get a change made if it is a matter of fact. If there is a fact that is wrong or a fact that is missing, that is the sort of thing. And of course, if we have a reliable source to verify that information, that's relatively easy. If, however, it is a matter of perspective and it kind of involves the judgment, the editor who wrote it chose to, like include this detail or that detail. Um, if there's something in there that you just don't want to be there, but it's true, and your chances of getting it out are pretty minimal. You'd be better off focused on trying to add other things that you do want that you can verify and not, obsessing over, well, I don't want that, particular job to be mentioned because I didn't have a good time at that job, or there's some scandal that, someone in the future add to it. You know what? If it's factual and it's relevant to your career, it's probably going to stay.
So we only have a couple of minutes left here, but I would be remiss if I didn't raise the topic of AI and what that means for Wikipedia, both as a source and how AI ends up being potentially a source for Wikipedia stuff. I mean, how are you thinking about how AI and Wikipedia intersect in 2023?
It's interesting. As far back as early last year, we had been asked by prospective clients, actually in the crypto space, with somebody who asked us, like, they were surprised to learn that we were not using AI to write Wikipedia articles at that time. Frankly, we were surprised that they thought that that was even feasible. Now, this was pre Chat GPT 4 and post, Chat GPT opening up to the public. All of a sudden, you can play around with it and start to see it's very good at adopting the style of Wikipedia. But here's the thing: it's still nowhere near being able to examine sources, pull out useful information. Frankly, you're probably familiar with AI's tendency to quote unquote hallucinate, or it'll make up information regardless of it. It just abhors a vacuum. It thinks you want a source, so it'll give you a source and it'll make up a source. So we actually did an experiment. And if you go to the Beutler Ink blog, we have a post from a couple months ago where we pitted one of our Wikipedia strategists against ChatGPT in writing about a topic that did not yet have a Wikipedia article. And so, if you're following AI, you probably have a guess what happened. That Wikipedia or ChatGPT finished in seconds, and it wrote something that was read quite plausibly, but it also missed a lot of information, and and it didn't have any sources, or the sources it made up a couple sources. Our strategist, it took them, 3 hours or longer, but came back with something that is really, high quality and accurate. And we then uploaded that to Wikipedia, and we wrote a blog post about the experience. I think that there are possible applications of AI within, developing a draft that could be useful in the near future, but it really has a long way to go before it's ever going to replace, or frankly, before it's even going to really be a useful tool for doing research and compiling it. I would think that's something that, I don't know. I should not make predictions about AI. It surprised me before. Um, but it's just not there. It's intriguing. I'm not worried about AI taking away jobs from most writers. And I think AI is very good at mimicking style. It's not good at actually being interesting or, you know, um, or at all strategic.
Well, it's certainly something to keep an eye on, and I know that it's something that you'll be doing on your blog, and so I would encourage people to become regular followers of your blog for the insights that it provides. If someone is interested in learning more about you and Beutler Ink, Bill, where should they go?
Yeah, so certainly Beutlery.com, our website, is the place to go. We have launched a couple of initiatives here in late summer that I think would be really interesting. If you look up, our website and ask a wiki expert, we have a series of videos that we are answering questions that we hear frequently, such as, is it true that there are some facts that can't be added to Wikipedia? One of my colleagues kind of talks through that. And it's a short form about, no longer than a minute and a half. So we'll keep doing that through the fall, and maybe come back for a season two later. And we've launched a monthly newsletter. It's called WikiWise. So also search Bueller Inc. and WikiWise, and you will find a place to sign up and receive once a month. We will send out a short, snappy newsletter that will talk about Wikipedia in the context of business and public relations and what's important about Wikipedia. So it's really, if you are somebody who's casually interested and just keeping up on what is happening in business in Wikipedia, WikiWise would be the place to go.
And if you've stuck with us this long, you definitely are interested in Wikipedia, so you should be
Yes.
subscribing right now. So before you go listen to that next podcast in your playlist, go ahead and subscribe. So, Bill, I really appreciate your time today. You've provided lots of thought and insight for our listeners. Again, my guest today has been Bill Beutler of Beutler Inc.